So let's talk a little bit about the properties of numbers. As we saw in class, we were talking about whole numbers and in particular integers, and those are numbers that are positive and negative, and certain properties arise. For example, adding is commutative, which means if I have 2 plus 3, which gives me 5, it's the same thing as doing 3 plus 2, which also gives me 5. So the order in which we add the numbers doesn't matter. If I do 2 plus 3 or first 3 then 2, I still get 5. So I'm allowed to move the numbers around a plus sign. Around a plus sign. But the same is not true if I try to do this for negative numbers. Subtracting is not commutative. I can't move numbers around a negative sign. If we try that, 3 minus 2, that doesn't give us the same thing as 2 minus 3. If I take 2 away from 3, I'm left with 1. But if I take 3 away from 2, I'm left with negative 1. So they're not equal. They're not commutative. We also saw that multiplication, which is repeated addition, is commutative, like addition. So multiplication is commutative. For example, 2 times 3, which is 6, is the same thing as 3 times 2. But division is not commutative. For example, 4 divided by 2, which is 2, is not equal to 2 divided by 4, which is 0.5. Operations on integers. Operations in math are things like adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So we're not doing some kind of major surgery on anybody. We're not operating on anybody's heart or anything. We're just doing adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And there's some basic rules that we must follow for the math to make any sense. First, all the numbers we have also have an opposite, and we call them negative numbers. We write these numbers down with a negative in front. So for example, the opposite of 10 is negative 10. Since negative numbers are like any other number, we can add, subtract, multiply, and divide them. Let's see how. Adding and subtracting negative numbers. So 3 plus negative 2 goes like this. First of all, notice that negative 2 is a number. That's why I've got the negative and the 2 in red. It's one whole number. I'm adding negative 2 to the number 3. But the symbols plus and minus combine and they become one single symbol. I can simplify the symbols from plus minus into just one negative sign, 3 minus 2. So what I'm saying is this symbol over here, let me highlight that in a different color, purple. This over here becomes one negative sign. This is called simplifying. So 3 plus negative 2, which becomes 3 minus 2, is equal to 1. We notice then that whenever there's a plus followed immediately by a negative, like this, it becomes one negative, a single negative. On the other hand, if I have 4 minus positive 2, here what I'm saying is subtract a positive number. Well, the negative and the positive, they also get simplified and they also become just one single negative sign. So 4 minus 2 becomes 2, and we notice over here that when there's a negative followed immediately by a positive, that becomes a negative. Finally, if I have 10 minus negative 5, notice that negative 5 is a whole number all by itself over here. 10 minus negative 5, these two negatives, they become one single positive. They simplify and they become one single positive. 10 minus negative 5 becomes 10 plus 5. This is true because double negatives are positives. It's as if I said, I'm not happy, which would really mean I am happy. Two negatives makes a positive. 10 plus 5 gives me 15, so I notice over here that whenever there's two negatives, one right after the other, it becomes positive. Here's a way to remember all this. I'm going to make you a table. Here's a table. What this says basically is if I combine a positive with another positive, I get a positive. Here it is. But if I combine a positive, let's do a positive with a negative, I get a negative. If I do a negative with a negative, they give me a positive. So you can use this table here to help you locate what the sign will be if there's two of them stuck to each other. Plus plus becomes plus, plus minus becomes minus, minus plus becomes minus, and minus minus becomes plus.